How can you get more of your listeners to take action on your podcast without sounding salesy? Like, you don't want to be that guy and, you know what, like, oh, I've definitely made the mistake where we come off way too salesy and it sucks. So how can you do it without making the mistakes that I've made, giving, you know, the wrong taste in your audience mouth? Because you don't want that, right? The best way to do this is to make sure that your calls to action, your CTA, just feels like such a logical next step for the people, right? If your lead magnet or your book a call offer feels random or disconnected from your episode, no one will act on it. But if it feels supernatural, like again, like a very clear progression of why they should work with you, then it makes total sense, right? Because in that moment, your audience are thinking, of course I should do this. This just makes complete sense. So here's the trick, right? Great CTAs don't feel like a sales pitch. They feel like a gift you're giving to your audience. And it should make your audience feel like not clicking would be a complete waste of the time that they've just listened. And a prime example of this would be if I had that episode that was all about anxieties, and as an example, and then at the end of the episode I mentioned, hey look, here are 3 steps you can go through to reduce your anxiety. Step 1, get more sleep. Step 2, you know, breathing exercises. Step 3, stress exposure, or like, you know, social environment exposure. I didn't bloody know, these are random examples, but go with me. And at the end, you mentioned, hey, by the way, I have a personalized one-on-one program where I help you get anxiety free so you can, you know, go out in public confidently, speak to new people without having that pit in your stomach. If you're interested and you want to just finally get over your anxiety and stop having to hold you back, this is a random example, but this is what it'd be like, right? Then, you know, go to the show notes and click the link in the description and book a call. That will feel so natural and it wouldn't feel weird. It just kind of just makes sense why you've done that. But if you just have a general personal development podcast and then at the end you mention about your anxiety program, it's like, what the hell are we doing here? This feels so disconnected. Like, what's going on? Or like if you just interview the guest and the guest speaks about like maybe like some mental challenges and stress, and then at the end you give a pitch about your one-on-one anxiety program, still feels super disconnected. Now, the only way to make it not feel disconnected and salesy is, number 1, the value is specific and undeniable. You know, them working one-on-one with you to work on the process you've outlined on the actual episode just makes sense. Like, it is a clear offer. Number 2, the offer is tightly connected to the episode. It doesn't feel disconnected. You've made an episode talking about this problem and you mentioned how you can help them if they fancy on a one-on-one basis. Again, just feels very connected. And then finally, the CTA promises to solve the exact problem your episode has just unpacked. This is the piece that most people kind of screw up, right? Like, things need to feel natural and they need to feel connected. And I hope you can see, I hope it's clear to see, is it clear to see that if you do all these things, then it's so much easier to convert your audience and listeners into leads, into booked appointments, into sales, rather than just like things feeling disconnected, unintentional. This is such an easy way and powerful way to do it. Look, by the way, if you're enjoying this, and if you're like, holy crap, this guy's dropping some bombs, leave a like, leave a comment, let me know what you think. I don't do this just for fun. Like, I do this because I want to see you win, and I know there's so many podcasts out there creating amazing content, but there's honestly just limited, good, genuinely good content out about how to use a podcast specifically for business purposes. And that's why I'm here, baby. That's why I'm trying to fill the gap. So if you like it, feel free to leave a like and a comment down below, right? And then the second thing, in order to make your, again, listeners take more action, is 2, you must know what to say and how to say it to get the highest conversions. Because even the best offer in the world will fall flat if it just has like a generic afterthought. This is where 90% of podcasters drop the ball. They'll just say stuff like this, where it's like, download my template, book a call, get a freebie in the show notes. Look, I know you're probably making this mistake as well, and that's why I'm here, right? I'm not hating, I'm just saying. And the likelihood is, if you are saying these things, you're not getting people engaging with you. And it's because, again, it just feels like an afterthought. It feels very lazy, it feels very disconnected. And without what we call a proven call to action framework that's proven to, again, convert super high, no one's going to click. And I don't really blame them, right? I don't really blame them. It kind of just sounds like, oh, yeah, just check out this thing. But without the right frame, it doesn't hit the same. So great, Ant, cool, I get it. All right, I've got to change things up. But what should I do instead? Number 1, if you are going to give away a lead magnet or you want people to book on a call with you, Start with the offer. What's the lead magnet you want to give away? And honestly, sometimes the best episodes just comes from you knowing exactly what you're offering to your audience, and then crafting your content in a way that makes that offer feel irresistible. And in just a moment, I'm going to show you some very clear examples that will make this feel very obvious in terms of how you can do the same for your show. So here's an example of if you were going to give away a lead magnet, right? Let's say, for example, you want to give away a lead magnet for a podcast pitching template. And instead of making just a random episode talking about podcast growth and shoving the template in at the end as like, hey, grab my template, you craft a powerful episode that talks about why podcast guesting is the number one strategy for experts to use. You talk about why shows stay small because they avoid pitching, and you talk about how bad pitches completely ruins your credibility, and then you build out the pain around why it's long to create a pitch, how it's a lot of effort and all this and that. You build it all up, right? The marketing gig, and then the only logical step at the end is, hey, by the way, get this proven template that gets you booked on top shows even if you don't have a big audience. That would feel so natural. Your audience would feel kind of dumb. You'd feel dumb if you just watched if you listen to a bloody podcast episode and the entire thing was gassing up and how quickly you can grow your podcast by you being a guest on the people's shows, but then talks about, oh, but it's really tricky to get the right pitch. If you do it wrong, then people feel bad and like it ruins your credibility, and however you want to frame it. And then at the end, you then propose, hey, by the way, you can just get a proven pitching template to get booked on top shows in your niche. You're going to take the offer. Of course you are. And here's an example if it's a direct, hey, book a call with me, speak to me right now. Your episode is about, let's say, podcast SEO. You can tell, of course, this is like for my business, this is what I do. So it's close to home. But I think this will be a very clear example, because if you're watching this, then the likelihood is you are an expert, an entrepreneur with a podcast who's looking to grow and monetize. So this will feel very close to home. So let's say I wanted people to book on a call with me. I'll make an episode talking about podcast SEO. I'll kind of share my client success, how they gain thousands from podcast SEO, explain what podcast SEO is, kind of amplify the pain that people go through from not having podcast SEO, how it makes your life a lot harder, how you stay invisible. I'll explain all of that, right? And then I would essentially reveal that most podcasts, again, are invisible without it. Then I'll frame the call to action as, hey, book a free podcast SEO audit where we'll analyze your show, identify why you're not being found, and then build a personalized SEO strategy for you. And I might gas it up saying, these are the kind of stuff that gets you great results, like 10x download increase without more content. That's not true. You do need more content for podcast SEO. That's just an example. The point is, that book a call CTA just feels supernatural. It doesn't feel forced, and you wouldn't feel like I'm trying to screw you over in some kind of way. You just kind of feel like, okay, if I'm serious about this, I should probably explore it at least. And that's what you want your audience to feel like. You want your audience to feel like, oh, this is just a natural, clear next step. They're still getting value from it. They're still being educated. But again, it's kind of positioning what you're offering as just a logical next step for those people who are serious. So why does this work? Well, both of them feel like a no-brainer. They don't need hard selling. It's just their next obvious choice if they're someone who's serious. Now here's the final piece, right? So yes, you need to target the right pain point, and yes, you have to kind of make sure it just feels natural when you're giving your CTA. It's also super important to know how to say it, meaning what words do you need to say in order to get your audience to take action? And what we use to help us create the CTA itself is what we call the PASS framework. And PASS stands for Pain, Agitate, Solution. It's a copywriting framework. It's been around for as old as time, probably not as old as marketing, and it's proven to work. So look, here's the psychology behind it. Number one, just imagine that people didn't buy solutions, and instead they essentially buy escape plans from pain they already feel. Most podcasters completely skip this and they just jump to, hey, download this, book a call. But the listener's still thinking, why? I don't need to, so why would I? Whereas when you have the PASS framework, and again, pain, agitate, solution, or problem, agitate, solution, either one, right? This creates an emotional tension that it makes taking action feel a lot more urgent. If it doesn't feel urgent, if it doesn't feel like they need to take action right now, today, this very second, why would they? You wouldn't. I definitely don't. But when it feels urgent, like I have to do it right now, then I do it. Do sounds funny. Sorry, that was immature. So your audience, when you give a call to action, they're subconsciously thinking, why do I need this? What problem is this solving? And why should I care about this right now? That's it. You just have that couple minutes towards the end of the episode to really get them hooked, get them feeling this urgency, and get them taking action. So don't just build this entire thing up just to screw up because you haven't said the right things in order to get them taking action. So let's break this down in painful detail. You start by clearly naming what they're struggling with in their own words. Look, are you stuck with slow growth, putting in effort, but your podcast still feels invisible, right? All this will do is grab their attention. It gets them to say, yep, that's me. And now they feel seen. They'll listen. They'll perk up. You know, you're getting towards the end of the episode. They're probably thinking, I'm going to put this episode down. I'm going to get on with whatever I'm doing, my dishes, or the gym, my workout, whatever it might be. But by you calling out their pain point and their problem that they're going through, that they're aware that they're going through, you grab their attention. Then you have to agitate that problem. You know, you want to go a layer deeper and make them feel the cost of them staying stuck and not making a change. You could say something along the lines of, look, you've published 50 episodes, but you're still not seeing the results. No leads, no traction, and you're wondering if this whole podcasting gig was even a thing that works. Again, the point here is you're trying to build urgency, trying to show them like what they're losing out by not fixing this up. And the reason why we want to add a bit of urgency is because it adds kind of salt to the wound. Sounds very manipulative, sounds kind of weird, but it is what it is, right? It's kind of like adding salt to the wound where like, damn, that's really starting to sting. I really want to just make sure I solve this problem. Like, again, you just add an urgency because they need to feel like this act right now. And it has been proven that people move when the pain of staying the same is way greater than the pain of change. If someone's in a spot where they're kind of like just a little bit fat, but they've got a girlfriend, they feel great, you know, they've got their friends who love them, and there's nothing urgent as to why they should lose weight, versus an overweight dad who gets bad news by his doctor because his doctor says to him, hey, look, you've got another 3 years to live if you don't lose weight because you're now bordering, because you're now way too overweight, your blood pressure's too high, and you won't be able to see your kids when they start to walk. Which one's going to feel way more urgent? So the overweight dad, there's way more pain for him to change and lose weight and get off his ass and start working out, because if he doesn't, he's going to bloody die and he's not going to see his kids grow up. That's metaphorically the pain and gap we need to create for our audience. We need to let them know, like, obviously he's not going to be death situation, not that dramatic. However, we want to elicit the same kinds of emotion that would get that overweight dad to take action. That's the picture we want to paint. And then only then can we present a solution, a way out, a way to escape this pain. Then the solution is where we go into, you know, offering the next step. That's why I created this plug and play pitching template. Is the same one that our clients use to get booked on top shows. So you can shortcut your way to a bigger audience, even if you don't have a big audience yourself. Can you see how if you're making someone aware of their problem, if you're adding salt to the wound and agitating that problem, getting them kind of irritated, and then you're presenting your offer, whether that's your lead magnet or book a call, as the clear next step in a logical way, it's going to be impossible for them not to take action. You're going to convert at a much higher rate. Now, why the PASS framework works so well is because you're not just giving information, you're creating emotional relevancy for your audience to your product. You're not just promoting another resource, you're positioning that resource, that thing, as the key to solving the problem they already feel. And finally, you're not just listing a bunch of features, you're creating a sense of urgency and desire, the need to want what you have, the need to book on a call, to download your lead magnet, without feeling like you're being high pressure or super hypey. You don't need to do that. You have to just go through the simple process and it works super well. To recap, right? Most podcasters struggle to grow and monetize their content. And the reason is because they kind of get stuck in just providing valuable content, which is educational, and it's great, and you need that. But you also need the three key pillars, which is value content, growth content, and conversion content. If you want your audience to start taking more actions and engaging with you, you need to start creating more conversion content. And how we turn a listener into a customer is by creating very targeted and specific episodes, not just hoping and guessing, but creating what we call pain amplification episodes, where we target a specific pain point our audience are aware of, and we title it in a very explicit way in order to grab their attention. Now, once we have their attention in the episode itself, we're going to be having a 80-20 split, simply meaning that, 80% of the episode is you kind of talking and exploring the problem experiencing, amplifying their pain, showing them how them not changing is really going to hurt their progress, showing them the consequences of why they need to change, and then showing them and painting a picture of what things could look like if they just simply had the right direction. And then 20% providing high-level solution. And then at the end of the episode, understanding that you have to say the right thing in the right way in order to have the highest conversions. Your lead magnet, your book a call CTA, the call to action you give, needs to feel directly related to the episode you've just covered. And in order to get them to take the most amount of action, you should use the pain problem, right? Pain problem, either one. Pain, problem, agitate, solution framework. You need to use a past framework to get your audience feeling that sense of urgency in order for them to take an action. So with that being said, I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.